And finally, new rule, stop threatening to put everyone in jail who you just don't like, the way Senator Rand Paul is trying to do now with Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is back in the news because Senator Paul, formerly of the Privacy is Everything wing of the Republican Party, got hold of Dr. Fauci's personal diary and published all of it. Rand, babe, your entire brand is Senator Right to Privacy. You're the libertarian guy, the Fourth Amendment guy. It's your family legacy. Your entire political career has been about warning us about government overreach. You printing someone's diary is like AOC wearing a gown that says tax the poor. And so we enter yet another news story that illustrates the Rorschach test that is America. Dr. Fauci, depending on your politics, is either an esteemed, dedicated public servant or a vain, flawed bureaucrat. Well, it's both. Life's complicated that way. You know what's really complicated? Science. And Dr. Fauci definitely got some of that wrong. He said if you got the vaccine, it was highly unlikely you'd get COVID or transmit it. Wrong. Okay, but that's not because it was part of some self-dealing plot. Things were changing rapidly. They just got it wrong. That's science. Reports of Fauci deliberately lying are based on lazy research, including from centrists that got timelines wrong or transposed. But Fauci could be unforgiving, too. In his diary, he described a dispute with another medical advisor, Scott Atlas, who wanted to keep the schools open, which Fauci told his Dear Diary borders on criminal. No, he's not a criminal, and you're not a criminal, which should be obvious since only 2 months later, when Atlas resigned, Fauci wrote, the one area he was correct was in saying that school children are not the drivers of the outbreak. Okay, so can we not call people criminals just for the part they got wrong? Look. Look, from the beginning, there were two schools of thought on how to handle COVID. One was the model they followed in Sweden and Florida, two places that have nothing in common except a love of old people in sweaters. But both places thought it was smarter, and both did quite well, by laser focusing on protecting the vulnerable and letting life go on for everyone else. They thought it was a good idea to get out and go in the sun for vitamin D and fresh air. You know, crazy stuff. Not crazy stuff, okay? The other side, well, let's just say they erred on the side of caution. Really, really into erring on that side. I showed this picture last week. That's a Democratic Socialist meeting in Colorado last month. Now that's extreme, but it's the direction that half of the country tends toward. David Leonhardt studied this issue and wrote of Democrats during the pandemic. Organizing their lives around COVID is core to their identity as progressives. And that is the place where I have a problem with the hero worship of Anthony Fauci, because it seems fame is a drug with a 100% addiction rate. Have you read some of the shit in Fauci's diary? Last week I played a game here called Who Said It, Fauci or Trump? Let's play. It is not hyperbole to say I am the most famous and talked about person in the country. The nurses went absolutely wild to see me. I am such a valued spokesperson and a good communicator. One person said that Tyra Banks was sexy, but I was even sexier than she was. None of that is Trump. That's all Fauci. Writing to himself at 80. Why? So we can read it back when he's 100 and remember what a hot piece of ass he was at 80? Talk about main character syndrome. Fauci drops celebrity names like 60 Minutes drops correspondence. I mean, it's like finding out that in the 1950s, Jonas Salk kept a diary as he was developing the polio vaccine, but it was mostly about how he got to meet Howdy Doody. Now, am I saying all of Fauci's decisions came about because he was lapping up the adulation? No. But you have to try awfully hard not to notice how much Fauci is energized by being embraced by one particular cultural tribe. It was Julia Roberts who was telling Fauci he was Jesus with a petri dish, not Randy Quaid. And that side likes to think of themselves as the purely science people, even though keeping kids out of school that long and traumatizing 2-year-olds with masks wasn't good science. Fauci supported some strange policies for such an esteemed epidemiologist. Natural immunity doesn't count now? Meaning, even if you've had the disease, you still had to get the shot? That sounds more like what Pfizer and Fauci's celebrity friends wanted to hear. He let this shit go to his head. Turns out the really dangerous intimate contact wasn't shaking hands, it was kissing ass. And yet, he is very, very far away from being a criminal. Please, he's not Dr. Mengele because your kid had to take algebra on Zoom. He put in a lot of service for the country, but at the end of the day, he was somewhat seduced. I mean, ask yourself, what happens every time in high school the nerdy kid gets invited to the cool kids table? Okay, that's never happened, but if it did, look, when someone strokes your ego, it affects your opinions. And it's all too easy to go from everyone says I'm amazing to only idiots disagree with me. Hollywood co-opted Fauci, and Fauci told the country what Hollywood wanted to hear. If you go outside, you'll die. So send your assistant.